Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, if you do enjoy the video that you came here to watch, do me a favor, go ahead and hit that little red subscribe button at the bottom of the screen. It really does help my audience grow. It really does help this channel grow. It means more than you realize. So go ahead, hit that little red button. Also, remember, full episodes of the Aaron Torres podcast, wherever you download your podcast, Apple, Spotify, etc. Now, here is the video that you came here for. And then on Sunday at about 7 o'clock Eastern, we got some late breaking news. So I want to get to it right now. And then we'll get back to your regularly scheduling program where we're going to talk Oklahoma, we're going to talk Texas A&M, and the rest of the weekend in college football. But on Sunday night, as I said, about 7 p.m. Eastern time, we got shocking news out of the world of college football as Paul Crist, the head coach of Wisconsin, who has won 72% of his games. Wisconsin, one of the most stable, non-reactionary athletic departments in all of college football, announced that they were firing their coach. And so I want to get into it. I want to break it down because it is just a stunning, stunning, stunning piece of news. What I would say about it, I do think, I think there's a lot at play here, okay? And so what I would say is, I think if you just look on the surface, you'd sit there and say, not only is it insane because it's Wisconsin, but it's insane because this guy's been really good. 72% win percentage as the head coach at Wisconsin. He has been with Wisconsin for, I'm trying to do some quick math here off the top of my head. This is his 8th season. As I said, 72% win percentage, 4 10-win seasons, 1 11-win season, 1 13-win season in 2017. What also happened, and I think there's a few variables as to why he is no longer the head coach. One, it has not been good over the last couple of years. And it's so interesting, right? If you go back to 2019, that was the year Joe Burrow was tearing it up at LSU. Trevor Lawrence was tearing it up at Clemson. Ohio State, Justin Fields was tearing it up there. Ohio State went into the Big Ten championship game, and it was a foregone conclusion. Those three are going to be in the playoff. Clemson, LSU, and Ohio State. Just one problem. About midway through the, I think, third quarter, Wisconsin had a lead on Ohio State, and there was a real thought that they could lose that game. But since that 2019 Big Ten championship game, it's basically all been downhill, okay? So they lose that game. They end up going to the Rose Bowl, losing to Oregon, Justin Herbert, Mario Cristobal, no shame in that. Then there's a COVID year. You go 4-3, but it's a weird year. You win the opener, then you get COVID. The next 2 weeks are canceled, blah, 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 blah. Weird season, 4-3, whatever. Last year, I think, is when you first started to see there's some real cracks in the foundation here. They go 9-4 overall. At first glance, it's not terrible, but dig a little deeper and it is, and I'll tell you why. One, you started the season 1-3. Lost to Penn State at home early, lost to Notre Dame on a neutral field, lost to Michigan at home early. Now, I'm not blaming everybody for everything and all those losses and all that stuff, but they were 1-3 to start the season, which that basically means, ironically, as I record here on Sunday night, it was a year ago. By the first weekend of October, your season was over. October 2nd, you lose to Michigan, you're 1-3. It doesn't matter what you do the rest of the way. To their credit, they rallied, but they lost to Minnesota late in the year in a rivalry game. PJ Fleck, I don't want to say has had Paul Crist's number, but he's taken a few from Wisconsin after they never lost to Minnesota. And so you have the 4-3 season. It's followed by a 9-4 season where you started 1-3 and your season was basically over before it even really began. But then finally, you have this season. You have this season where you come back, you're Wisconsin, you're ranked, everything's going to be fine. And what has happened so far? You're 2-3, and the losses are just, by Wisconsin standards, unacceptable even for Wisconsin, right? It's one thing if you just lose to Ohio State because they have better players. If you lose to Michigan because they have better players, even if you lose to Penn State because they have better players. Well, here's the problem. Here's who you've lost to so far. Washington State. Then you get steamrolled by Ohio State, where it's not even competitive, 28-0 before Wisconsin can even blink. And then on Saturday, at home, you lose to Illinois and their second-year head coach. You know who their second-year head coach is? Oh, it's former Wisconsin head coach Brett Bielema. And so basically, first of all, the irony there. Remember, this was the guy. He leaves. His wife tweets, #karma. Then it falls apart at Arkansas. He rebuilds his career. He goes to the NFL. He works under Bill Belichick, goes to Illinois with the Wisconsin blueprint, and out Wisconsin in Camp Randall for the victory in an absolute stunner. And so when I look at this situation, I'm not totally surprised that Paul Crist was fired. And I'll take it a step further. I think the reason that this makes sense, we're going to go a little inside college football, and I know you guys and girls love this, and I think this will be interesting for you. I think that they have the guy that they want as the next head coach already on staff. And so let me explain. So their defensive coordinator is a guy named Jim Leonhard. Jim Leonhard played at Wisconsin. He played a million years in the NFL. He's kind of a great, Wisconsin story, right? He's from Wisconsin. Played it. He was a walk-on at Wisconsin, goes from walk-on to NFL player, a guy that played in the NFL for a very long time, about a decade, about 10 years total. And so he comes back. The Wisconsin defense is awesome. And I think, and he's had other opportunities, to be clear. He was actually offered the Green Bay Packers defensive coordinator job this offseason and turned it down. And so I bring it up because what I think happened at Wisconsin is what I think has happened throughout college football quite a bit over the last 2 or 3 decades since I've been following it, is that sometimes you know that you have the next guy, and either the head coach has to be smart enough to get out of the way, or you risk potentially losing him. I'll give you a few examples. Oregon, early to mid 2000s, they're struggling offensively. What do? They go and hire a young, bright offensive mind from New Hampshire named Chip Kelly. He comes in, revamps their offense, and Mike Bellotti, their head coach at the time, realized this is the guy that should be running the program. And if we don't name him the head coach, we're going to lose him to somewhere else. And so Mike Bellotti stepped aside. I'll be honest, I'm doing quick reaction. I don't know how excited he was to step aside, but Oregon basically realized we got the next Bill Walsh at the time. I know Chip Kelly's whatever now, but at the time he's like, we got this great young coach. We're going to lose him if we don't name him the head coach. Fast forward a few years ago, Lincoln Riley in Oklahoma. Now I think Bob Stoops was ready to step aside. I think he was ready to try something else, but Oklahoma's like, we're going to lose this guy. And the more the time goes on, I'll tell you, the more that there's kind of mixed reports over whether Bob Stoops really wanted to step aside, but at the end of the day, he does. At the end of the day, he doesn't want to coach college football anymore. But they knew they had the next guy on their staff, and they were like, we have to give this guy the job right now, or somebody is going to take him. And so I bring it up because I do think it is a very similar situation at Wisconsin. This guy has interviewed for other jobs, or at the very least been a candidate for other jobs. He could have been the Green Bay Packers defensive coordinator, and at some point you're going to lose him as the head coach. You're going to lose him, to another opportunity, whether it's a head coach in college, whether it's a coordinator job in the NFL, whether it's a head coaching job in the NFL, but you're going to lose him. So rather than lose him, give him these 5-6 games, let him see if he's really the guy. If he is, he becomes your next head coach, because the worst thing that you can do is lose this guy to another job and have him be the next great coaching star, right? Have him be the next guy. And then all of a sudden you're like, we had the next great coaching star on our staff and we let him go somewhere else and we let him walk. And so to me, that's what I think the plan is. Put Jim Leonhard in charge, see how the players respond, see how he handles the job. And then more importantly, if he's the guy, you give him a big fat contract so he doesn't go anywhere. And if he's not the guy, and you do a national search. Now, I will say it'll be interesting. A couple of things stand out with a potential search. There are a lot of guys with ties to Wisconsin, believe it or not. Lance Leipold, the hottest coach in college football right now, at Kansas, won multiple national championships in D3 in the state of Wisconsin at Wisconsin Whitewater. Dave Aranda, the coach at Baylor, I don't think he's leaving, but he was a longtime defensive coordinator at Wisconsin. And I bring it up to say there's a lot of interesting names that could be the next coach, but I think they want to give Jim Leonhard the job. Finally, what I would say, I'll tell you, and we talked about it a little bit when I guess it was Scott Frost was fired maybe. In the world that we live in now, I just believe that there is no such thing as giving anybody time, especially in the Big Ten and especially in the SEC. The money is too good. So Paul Crist, the head coach, the reports are he's going to get upwards of a $16 million buyout to be fired today. And I bring it up because that's a lot of money, But in the world of college football in 2022, you can't afford not to pay him that if you don't think he's the right guy and if you think you have the right guy on staff. And so maybe it's different if this is an ACC school, a Mountain West school, a Big 12 school. But in the Big 10, you are going to have that money. Remember, we saw Scott Frost. They could have waited until probably today to fire Scott Frost, October 1st, October 2nd, and paid him $7.5 million. They decided it was worth getting him out of the building 3 weeks early to pay him an extra $7.5 million. So stunning news. Paul Crist out. I believe Jim Leonhard is going to get the chance to really earn this job. I think they want him to be successful so he can be the next head coach. But you talk about a crazy, crazy, crazy story. I cannot believe that we are talking about this right now.